everybody, and welcome to our noon tech talk. Today we're going to be talking about scams and phishing attacks that you can worry about when you're out in the world and on the internet, as if you didn't have enough to worry about already. Before we get started, I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Caitlin Seagraves. I run the Digital Literacy Lab at Central Library, and I've been teaching or coordinating weekly tech talks. Next week, we have somebody coming to talk about cryptography and kind of the history of cryptography. So I'm looking forward to that one. It's one of, we've done a couple of times, but I always learn something new each time. We have a privacy engineer named Luke Crouch coming to teach that. But today we are going to be talking about what phishing is, different types of phishing, different phishing techniques, what you should look out for. We're going to look at some examples of phishing or, scammy emails that I've gotten in like the last couple of weeks. We're going to do a short quiz. And then we're also going to just look at a couple of other things that you need to watch out for on the internet or, through calls. We're all kind of living through a weird time. A lot of people are working from home right now. And there's definitely been an increase in phishing and scams, kind of from all sides. I've gotten more phone calls, more texts, more emails, more pieces of mail than I've ever gotten. And this is Felix back here. He may be joining us a few times throughout. But first, we're going to define phishing. So here, according to Merriam-Webster, phishing is a scam by which an internet user is duped, usually via email, into revealing some sort of personal or confidential information that the scammer can use. There are several different types of phishing, and we're going to kind of look at all of them, or a few of the more popular ones. But essentially, phishing is some sort of attack to get information out of you. Usually this information can be used for any sort of thing. It can be used to get into your banking account. It can be used to access your email and see messages from other people. It can be to get you to click on a link so that you download, some sort of malicious software to your computer. But the first one we're going to look at is spear phishing. So spear phishing is the one that I probably see most often at work. Usually it's targeted specifically at individuals or companies, and they usually use the information gathered from company websites or social media to kind of engineer an email that looks like something you would open. So here I have just a screenshot of an email example that I drafted myself. It's from CEO@tulsalibrary.org, which is my boss's 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 boss. And the subject line says document needs review. Hi, Caitlin, please review the document at this link as soon as possible. I need it for a meeting this afternoon. Thank you, Kim. So this is an email that, could have come from my CEO. Her name is Kim, and that looks like an email address that she could send something from. But when I hover over the link, I notice that the link takes me to kind of a weird website that Kim would not be uploading a document to. There's also some other things that I might think about this email when I see it, such as, usually our CEO doesn't email me directly. She goes through one of my managers, or it would come from her assistant. So that might be something I find a little suspicious. But in looking at this email, there's kind of a few red flags that would keep me from clicking on that particular link. Whaling is kind of a similar attack. They use, information that they've gathered from other places to target specifically executives at companies. Usually executives have access to more information, something like financial records. If it's somebody in an HR department, they could have personal information for employees, including social security numbers. So whaling, catching a big fish, very similar to spear phishing, but on a larger scale. Catfishing is a fairly regular targeted attack. So catfishing, if you've heard it in maybe popular culture, like MTV has a show called Catfish, or they used to back in the day. It usually refers to somebody duping you through kind of a dummy account. So catfishing with a P usually refers to someone getting close to a mark to get information from them. Most of us are not going to have to deal with catfishing in our lives, the catfishing with a P, where when we have somebody who approaches us, you know, in person to get information that they can use to hack the library server and find all sorts of like important information. But that's not to say everybody watching this, you know, is in that same boat. Maybe you have a security clearance or any number of things that people would want to gain access to. Catfishing with an F usually refers to someone using a fake or a dummy profile to get to know somebody online. I've actually heard of this happening fairly often with people I talk to at the library or in my family, where they meet somebody online and maybe they ask you to send money, or maybe they, you know, try to get to know you in the hopes that you eventually get to meet them in person. Usually it has to do with like romantic ties or friendship. Catfishing with an F is a little harder trap to fall into, but I definitely have heard of it happening to people. That's not to say you can't meet people online, but there are ways that you can like look critically at the accounts people are using. One quick thing that you can do to make sure you're not, I'm sorry, Felix is very excited today. One thing that you could do to make sure that the profile you're looking at is not fake. I'm going to barricade the door really quick. With my back. Okay, we'll see if that keeps them out. I forgot where I was at. Anyway, catfishing. One thing that you can do with a profile when you're looking at it, do like a reverse search engine or a reverse search on a profile picture. If you right click, if you're using Chrome, you found a picture on somebody's Facebook profile or something, if you right click and do reverse search, Google search, you can see where that picture may pop up elsewhere on the internet. And I can actually do a quick example somewhere. Let's go to tulsalibrary.org and go over to just the Digital Literacy Lab page. And here's a picture of me that is used often professionally. I can search Google for this image, and it'll show you a few other places that photo pops up. And it kind of is looking more at the metropolitan area behind me, but you can also find it. Here is where it's used on the web page we were just on. So this one seems to be picking up the metropolitan area behind me more than the picture of myself. But generally, it can, if it's a photo that's used across like multiple social media platforms, it may show up in a reverse search pretty easily. That was a bad example, my bad. Another type of phishing is voice phishing, and this is one that I have almost fallen prey to. I have had older family members fall prey to, and it can be a thing that happens fairly regularly. So voice phishing is when you get calls to your cell phone or to your landline that sound pretty plausible and ask for any sort of information. The one that I almost gave information to, and I don't think it was actually a scam. I just, as I was giving information, was like, hold on a second, Caitlin, you literally tell people all day not to do this, and you are doing this thing. I got a call from a charity that I donate to annually, asking for me to re-up my donation, and they were going to collect my credit card information over the phone. And I literally was getting out my credit card from my wallet, and then I stopped myself and said, actually, I'm going to give you guys a call back using the phone number that is listed on your website. And I did that, and you know, I was able to make my donation, but I didn't give my credit card information to some random person calling me over the phone. Voice phishing can also be like family members asking for money. One of my family members fell prey to they thought I was in jail and that I was calling for bail money. And they wired money to some account. So it, you know, it can happen. It is fairly common. And one thing that you should always do when you get a phone call, never give your personal information out to the number that is calling you. Spoofing is a thing that can happen. And I actually have like kind of a good video explaining or showing an example of that. But if you get a call and it seems plausible, like it's your bank warning you of some sort of fraudulent alert, go ahead and hang up, call the bank through the numbers that you can find on their website or the back of your credit card, and take care of your business that way, to kind of avoid the potential that you're giving your information out to somebody. So this is just a quick 2-minute video of an example of somebody hacking into or getting information on an account. And we're just going to watch it because I thought it was like a really good example.
So I invited a few of the world's best hackers to try to hack me and show me where my vulnerabilities are. And now I'm going to meet them in Las Vegas for DEF CON, the biggest hacker convention of the year. They're going to hack me using social engineering, which is essentially hacking without any code. They just use a phone and an internet connection.
You want to do a sample phishing call?
What's phishing?
Phishing is voice solicitation, and basically what you do is you use the phone to extract information or data points that can be used in a later attack.
Let's do it. Who are you going to call?
Maybe I'll call your cell phone provider and see if I can get them to give me your email address.
I bet they're good. I bet they have my back. But yeah, go for it.
I'm going to spoof from your number, so it's going to look like it's calling from you.
Okay.
Hi, I'm so sorry. Can you hear me okay? My baby, I'm sorry. My husband's like, we're about to apply for a loan and we just had a baby and he's like, get this done by today. So I'm so sorry. I can't call you back. I'm trying to log into our account for usage information and I can't remember what email address we used to log the account. The baby's crying and can you help me? Awesome.
In just 30 seconds,
at gmail.com,
Jessica gets access to my personal email address.
Now, if I needed to add our older daughter on our account so she could call in and make changes, how would I need to go about doing that? You would have to send me a secure PIN through a text message? Yeah, well, the thing is, I don't think I'll be able to receive a text message if I'm on the phone. Oh, I'm not on there either? So I thought when we got married, he added me to the account.
Jess uses my girlfriend's name and a fake social security number
5127
to set up her own personal access to my account.
Wait, I'm sorry. So there's no password on my account right now? Can I set that up?
She even gets the support person to change my password.
Thank you so much for your help today.
So she just basically blocked me out of my own account.
I'll get...
Okay, I'm going to cut that off because I think it uses a curse word next. But as you can see in this example, somebody, called a company. They used a situation where there's a baby crying in the background. They acted kind of frustrated. And I'm sure the person, who was talking to them from the service company was flustered, wanted to be helpful for the customer. Everybody wants to have a good customer service experience. And inadvertently gave out somebody's personal email address, set up an account user for some random person that called. And, a cell phone account, probably less havoc than say like a bank account or something, but I could still, purchase a phone on your account or add a landline or a line or something and, cost somebody a bit of a headache. So definitely something to keep in mind, when you're talking to service professionals and they ask you for information to verify your account, don't get frustrated with them. They are trying to protect your account. But, always be a little suspicious when you get phone calls asking for personal information. Another type of phishing, and one that I have experienced a few times just in the last couple of weeks, is SMS phishing. So it could be a text message that you get. Usually a text message, if it's trying to get you, it'll try to get you either to download something to your phone or click on a link. And if you ever get a link in your, in a text from a number you don't recognize, like just don't click it. If you get a link from a number you do text pretty often, but maybe you don't often get stuff from them, just be a little suspicious. And a text message that I received recently was for a salon asking me to cancel or to confirm or cancel an appointment I had set up with them. And there was a link that I assume might have taken me to some sort of like online scheduling thing, but I had never heard of the salon before I've never set up an appointment with them, so I didn't click on the link. Had I clicked on it, though, who knows what it could have taken me to. So text messaging, usually you don't have to worry too much about, somebody like posing as your best friend to get you to send your social security number. But as a rule, do not send those things over text. Once a year, I have to fill out paperwork for work, and I have to put my beneficiary for my life insurance policy, or I forget what they're called, but I need, I usually have my siblings on there, and they have to give me their address and their social security number to get them set up as beneficiaries. If somebody texts you asking for that information, maybe just give them a call and ask, why do you need this information? And if you need that information from somebody, don't ask for it via text, just give them a call. Now, there are a few phishing techniques to keep in mind, and there's actually like dozens of these. I'm just looking at kind of the three big ones in the hopes that, being able to recognize these will keep you from falling prey to them. The first one is link manipulation. So in that example that I gave you earlier, an email from my CEO at tulsalibrary.org, there was a link in the email. One thing that's great if you use email, like Gmail or Outlook or something, if you hover your mouse over a link, usually it'll show you where it's going to take you. If you're using Outlook for work, you probably have some sort of like malware checker. At the library, if we click on a link, it'll say, hold up a second, let me make sure this is secure, and then it'll send you to the website. If you're using Gmail, they usually have like, this is a malicious link pop-ups, but not always. So some things to look for with link manipulation is to actually just read the link before you click it. A good example of maybe you open up an email from ESPN, some sort of newsletter, and it wants to take you to their website, epsn.com. It looks really close, but it is not ESPN. It's probably some sort of spoofed account. Or if you get an email from, say, your bank asking you to maybe reset a password or review a fraudulent alert, maybe you bank with Arvest, and Arvest is in the link, but there's something afterwards that doesn't quite look like it fits. Generally, if I get an email that looks pretty realistic, with some sort of fraudulent alert or update to an account, rather than clicking any of the links in the email, I'll actually go straight to the service's website and navigate to my account that way. And usually they have some sort of message in there that will reflect your email, or you won't find anything that you need to take action steps on, in which case you can assume that the email was fraudulent. So just pay attention to links. There are some pretty good looking fake links out there that can really take you to weird parts of the internet or infect your machine. And a good practice, whenever you see links that are hyperlinked in text, always float your mouse over and just double check before you click it. Another pretty popular phishing technique is website forgery. So PayPal is a service that I use fairly often. If I'm buying something on a website or making a donation, I usually use PayPal because it saves my banking information, and I know it's a pretty secure service. There are actually websites set up on the internet that look almost exactly like PayPal and are specifically set up so that you log in with your information and give them your PayPal login information. So here is a screenshot of one, paypal.account.getbill/service.com sign in. A few things to note. If you were going to an actual paypal.com website, it would say paypal.com as the domain name. You'll also note up here in the top left-hand corner, this is a screenshot of Chrome, and Chrome does generally, and Firefox too, I will say, do a pretty good job of informing you if the websites you're on are something that you need to look out for. On here, I notice it doesn't have an HTTPS. So, you know, maybe a third-party site or a person could be squatting on the site and collect information as I'm typing into it. And just from the, like the looks of the link on here, this is not paypal.com, so I will not be typing in my information. But there are lots of websites on the internet that people, you know, imitate a legitimate site just to goof you up. I know, I don't know if it's still live, but like if you've ever mistyped facebook.com, it may take you to a page that looks a lot like facebook.com. So it's really important when you're logging into sites to make sure you were logging into the proper site. But don't fall for the website forgery. And then a phishing technique that's used in all sorts of situations is social engineering. And it's probably the one that you've heard most about, but it's also one of the ones you have to pay the most attention to. So social engineering usually plays on some sort of human emotion to gather information, and it exploits human error. So, you know, my IT department at the library is awesome. They do a lot to make sure that we are, you know, careful with our patron information, and that people can't access information on our servers. But if somebody were to open their email and click a link that would maybe download something to their computer, that could be very detrimental to the library's security system. And I have actually read about lots of libraries around the country that have had some sort of spearfish social engineering technique used against them, and they actually lost access to all of their network information, all of the information on their servers, or it got held ransom. And there was a library that had to shut down for 3 weeks until they could get their systems back up and running. So it can be pretty detrimental if you fall for some of these things. But some things to look out for in email, and usually what social engineering tries to do is it plays on your emotions. So the email that you're reading incites some sort of fear or excitement. You know, fear, maybe your account's been hacked, and if you don't take care of it, somebody can access, you know, something, or use your social security number to set up a fake unemployment check or something. It could be playing on your curiosity, or make you angry, or make you sad. But usually these attacks have some sort of sense of urgency to them. So there's something that you've been sent, and if you don't take care of it now, or take care of it, something bad could happen. That's what social engineering is, and that's kind of what people are trying to do when they have these more targeted attacks. So when you're reading your email, there's a few things you should look out for. You should always look to see who the email is coming from. You know, if you got an email from Caitlin at tulsalibrary.net, that's not me. The library does not use our first names as just our only email handle. You can imagine we have like 30 Rachels working for us, and that just wouldn't work. You also may know that tulsalibrary.net is not a website that we have. I don't think we own it. Ours is tulsalibrary.org. CEO at googlepayment.com. The CEO of Google's payment is not contacting you. And if they were, it would be from a more legitimate looking email address. Or they just may have like super long looking email addresses. I got like a spammy email from somebody, and I have it a few slides later. But it was like, the email sender was like this long. It's probably not legitimate. So here is just a screenshot of an email I got from a newsletter I signed up for with Public Radio Tulsa. I use Gmail as my personal email. And one thing I really like about Gmail is when you're in an email, you can click this little down arrow and it'll show you information about the email. So here I can see it's from newsletters at publicmediatulsa.org, something that I've signed up for. If I reply, it'll reply back to that email address. It was sent at this date, the subject. I can see information about the mailing list. Google is great in that it'll let you pretty quickly filter messages from this mailing list, or there's also like an unsubscribe service that they have, which is great. And then I can see there's even like a nice little security encryption. So quick information that I can find out about the sender just by looking at it. You should also make sure to look at the links in your emails critically. I had mentioned earlier spoofed websites. There is a website online called paypal.com that takes you to a website that kind of looks like paypal.com. But when you get there, it takes you to this pop-up and it wants you to install an extension on your browser. Do not install that extension on your browser. But you know, if you mistype something or if you click on something that looks very similar to it, it could take you to a malicious site. So always check for the spelling on your links, and always make sure that the links you're clicking look legitimate. You should also review the content of the email. Generally, if it's an email coming from a service or from a vendor that you use often, they're pretty professional. I tend to, have a lot of typos in my emails, so I'm sorry if you get an email from me and there's a typo, but generally emails that are legitimate use proper grammar. There's little to no spelling mistakes, and the design of the email is usually fairly professional looking. So if something just looks weird, assume it's weird. You should also not open attachments ever. Is a good rule of thumb, unless you're expecting them. If you see an attachment that has a .exe file extension, do not download those unless it's from a trusted source and you are expecting it. A .exe file is an executable, and usually it runs something on your computer. You don't want it to do that. PDFs can also be pretty dangerous. If you get an attachment from somebody that you are not expecting, just, take out your phone, call the person, text them, hey, you sent me this document, is this really from you? And if, it's your finance department sending you financial documents and you never work with financial stuff, ask yourself, why am I being sent this? And be especially careful not to open things unless you know where they're coming from. So here's just a screenshot of something that fortunately got put into my spam folder because it is obviously spam. But a few things I wanted to just point out here. Like I said earlier, I use Google, I use Gmail. So here we have an email, hey, ... It's from a really weird email address here. And the email is just kind of nonsense. Like, I don't have a new job. And I don't know a whole lot of people that use the word flat in their emails, because I don't know that many British people. So this is not something that I would probably respond to or click anything from, but looking at from the sender line was a pretty good tip that this is fake. Here we have an email that's trying to get me to reset my password to something. And I don't actually know how this got through to my email. I don't think this is in the spam folder, but it was just a link saying, hey, please reset your password. Again, if you ever get a notice from some sort of service asking you to reset your password, rather than clicking the link, just go to your browser, go to gmail.com and change your password through there. And then this is a third one that again was in my spam folder because my spam does a pretty good job of filtering stuff out. But this right here was a payout verification. So if I fill out my information here, I'm going to get $3,000. How exciting is that? And it's valid until midnight tonight. So if I don't do it now, I'm not going to get that $3,000. I'm not expecting $3,000 from anybody. And this deadline makes me think it's probably not real, but also just kind of the whole design of this email. It looks like a check and it's made to look like one for that reason. Also, it's from a sketchy email address. So I'm going to declare this spam. Now, Google has like a really great phishing quiz that I recommend to people all the time. And I actually just wanted to kind of go through this all with you all. And it doesn't take very long, but I think they have some very good tips in here. So if you want to do this at home later yourself or recommend it to somebody, it's just phishingquiz.withgoogle.com, which is one of those weird domains, but I promise it's real. So I'm just going to take the quiz, and it's asking for a name, no, email, no@no.com. And we're going to get started. So we have this Google Doc email. It's from Luke Johnson at luke.jason8000@gmail.com. I can click here, this little down arrow, and see it's from Luke to me on a date. And when I hover over this right here, there's kind of a weird, you can't see all of it for some reason, but when I hover over this link, it's got kind of a weird domain name. So I'm going to declare this to be phishing, and that is correct. And if we look here, when I hovered over this, it wanted to take me to drive-google.com, which, while it is like a realistic looking domain name, I know that Google Drive is drive.google.com. So it's something that I can catch. So this next one here, we've received an email from eFax with a fax that somebody sent. You'll notice here, though, that the from line is at efax.com and not efax. So they spelled fax wrong in the from. So I'm going to go ahead and declare this to be phishing. It is, and because of the sender address up here. So, and then, if I had also hovered over the link, I may have noticed that it linked to kind of a sketchy looking domain name, mailru382.co, which is not something that is likely. So here we have another email. It's from TK, series of letters, numbers at gmail.com. I don't really know anybody named TK. I don't remember TK from school. And when I hover over this, it looks like kind of a sketchy address. So I'm going to declare it's phishing. And again, it is, because it was trying to take me to a weird link. And then here, we have an email from Dropbox, which we all get emails from services saying all sorts of things. But if I come in here, it's from dropboxmail.com, which I'm not sure on that. I don't know. But when I hover over this, it looks like it's just taking me to dropbox.com/buy. So I'm going to go ahead and say this is legitimate. And it is. So the sender, dropboxmail.com, while a little strange, is still legitimate. And the thing that made me confident that this is okay is the link was taking me to dropbox.com. So we're good there. And then I think we're almost to the end of this. But here we have an email. You know, when you get emails from people at work that you contact often, it can be really easy to overlook this information up here at the top, who it's coming from. But the note they have here is that usually this email comes from westmountschool.org, and this one's westmountaindayschool.org. So it is not the same Sharon that we usually know. Also, I don't really have people sending financial activity reports to me very often, so I'm going to declare it to be phishing. And we were right. So good job, team. Usually this is a little more interactive. I'm sorry you guys aren't getting the full experience here. So someone has been trying to access your account. This is coming from Google. If I come here, it's from google.support, which I don't think that's Google's domain. And when I hover over this, it's trying to take me to a domain that has ml-security.org. So I'm going to decide that this is phishing. And they've agreed google.support is not used, and this is a sketchy domain. So good job, team. Here's another one from Google. Again, we have that same Google support, and then when you hover over this, it takes you to a tinyurl.com, which is definitely not Google. So I've actually gotten a fair number of these. They look real, but they're not. And again, if any service is trying to get you to change your password, just go straight to that service's website. So phishing, again, google.support, and then tricky, tinyurl.com. And here we have, I think this is our last one on the quiz. We've signed up for travel planning service. You want them to scan your email, but take a close look. So if you guys have ever, gone to a website and it tries to get you to create a user account, usually there's an option to like link it to one of your social media accounts like Facebook, Instagram, or you can link it to your Gmail. I generally do not encourage people to do that for lots of reasons. But the reason I would not want them to do it here is they want to view my email messages and settings. I do not want people digging through or having access to my email. And while this looks fishy, it is actually legitimate. But I still would not agree to it, just heads up. So good job, we got 8 out of 8 correct. If you, like I said, I think this is good practice. If you are working at a company where you have concerns about people in your company, maybe with phishing, definitely recommend that quiz, as well as a service called Know Before. That's one that we've used at the library. And actually something that they started doing at the library about a couple of years ago is they send out phishing simulations to staff. And it tries to catch people clicking on sketchy links. And if they click on it, they have to go through phishing training. And our score has gotten much better than it was the first simulation. So it's a worthwhile activity if you have employees that you're working with on this sort of skill building. And if you have questions, I'd be happy to send you information about that because I have found it to be very useful at the library. But email is not the only place we have to worry about scams and cons. If you all are on Twitter at all, this happened, I want to say a week or two ago. Several prominent accounts on Twitter had this tweet here show up. Everyone is asking me to give back and now is the time. I'm doubling all payments sent to my Bitcoin address for the next 30 minutes. If you send me $1,000, I'll send you $2,000 back. It's only going on for 30 minutes. Enjoy. And then has a link to the Bitcoin address. So with this, this showed up, I want to say like on a lot of accounts. I think it showed up on Elon Musk, Barack Obama. I saw it several different places on the internet. Some things about this. Bill Gates is a pretty generous guy, ish. And has done lots of charitable things, but I don't know that sending $2,000 back to somebody who has $1,000 is quite the way he would go about it. I also seriously doubt Bill Gates is using Bitcoin for charity purposes. And the fact that there's only 30 minutes to do it makes me think that it's just very unlikely that this is a legitimate thing. But lots of people fell for this attack, and the hackers who did this, I think was like, one of them was like a 16-year-old out of Florida, got lots of money until he got arrested. So this is an attack that actually happened and worked. But some things to ask yourself here. Why is it only for 30 minutes? Why is Bill Gates doing this? This seems unlikely. And a quick trending search would have made you realize that lots of people had this tweet up on their accounts, so not legitimate. It's also important that you be careful about what information you share online. We talked a little bit about social engineering earlier, but there are actually some like pretty popular Facebook things I have seen going on. So I'm on Facebook because my family's on Facebook, and I have to do a lot of work stuff on Facebook. And a thing that I have seen fairly often on there is like some sort of activity that gets you to build like, and I'm sorry, this is the only example I could come up with off the top of my head, was you make your stripper name, and you do that from taking your mother's maiden name plus the street you grew up on plus your pet's name, and that's your stripper name. You know, if you have ever set up a bank account, usually you have security questions, and they ask you things like, what's your mother's maiden name? What's the street you grew up on? What's your pet's name? So doing these like kind of fun, innocuous activities could actually be you sharing your personal information that then somebody could take and go get into your bank account with. So keep that in mind. And if you make a stripper name, just keep it to yourself. You don't need to share it with everybody on the internet. This was a thing that I came up on Craigslist recently. I don't know if you guys get on Craigslist much, but there's like a free page. And there was somebody who's giving out a free lawnmower, free riding lawnmower, because they got a new one and they wanted to give this one to somebody in need. Somebody went to go pick up that free riding lawnmower and they got mugged. So if you see something like this, just do a double take. Is somebody really going to give away probably a fairly expensive machine for nothing? That is very unlikely. And also, if you meet somebody on Craigslist, meet them somewhere public. Take a friend. I know the police department often lets you use their parking lot as an exchange spot. Quick Trip is also good for that. But if it feels too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true. And as I mentioned earlier, pandemic has brought out the worst in scammers, I have to say. And there's been lots of very official looking documents been going to people's homes. This is one that a coworker of mine was sent asking for them to share personal information, especially like personal health information. And if they filled it out within 5 days, they could receive a free Walmart gift card, as well as let them know if they are eligible for a particular benefit. So, it actually looks fairly official from the envelope itself. And, she took a picture of the other side, and I have to say, like, they did a pretty good job on it. But there was no information about a website with more information. And had there been, they may have found out that this is not actually a .gov sponsored kind of document. Also, Greensboro, North Carolina tends to be a spot where there's a lot of finance stuff going down, and anything that's particular for Oklahoma citizens probably wouldn't be sent out of North Carolina, or South Carolina, North Carolina. So just keep that in mind. But some good tips for you. Be suspicious. It's good to have a healthy amount of skepticism in the world when you're reading news, when you are opening your email, and really embrace that skepticism. Also, be nice to service employees. This is kind of a self-helping one for me, but companies, when they want to access your account, require that you have personal information. If you don't know that personal information, they can't access your account. Don't be rude to them. And if you come in and want to check out stuff to your library card, make sure you have your library card or a photo ID with you, please. And then if something just feels fishy, go with your gut. Your gut is pretty good at determining whether something is legitimate or not, and just kind of go with that feeling. But if you're ever unsure, feel free to ask somebody that you trust. When my grandma was alive, she used to call me all the time, reading emails to me, asking me if it was legitimate, or she would, take screenshots and send stuff to me and ask me about it. If you have somebody like that in your life, go ahead and ask them. If you can be that person for somebody else, make the offer that you can do that. And if you don't have somebody, come to the library. We are happy to help navigate those things with you. But I do have a quick few privacy tips for you that may make the effects of falling prey to phishing a little less detrimental. The first one being to check your devices for updates. Updates are an important way that you can keep your device secure. Often updates include security patches. And then also, if you have a machine that has a built-in security check function, just go ahead and run it occasionally, especially if you're worried about something that might be on your machine. I use Mac stuff, and there's a run, you can run checks on your system pretty quickly, and it's pretty handy. If you are downloading things to your devices, make sure it's coming from a trusted vendor. If that's on your phone, and this is probably where I see people get the most confused, always go through the App Store, or if it's your phone, really just download stuff from the App Store. And if it's for your computer, make sure it's coming from a trusted source. That's all I can say. And then another good tip is to always make sure you're not reusing your passwords. If somebody does get access to one of your accounts through some sort of phishing attack and they get your password, but it's the same password you use on all of your accounts, they have access to all of your accounts. So just make sure you're using unique passwords between accounts, and that can really save yourself some trouble later. And then probably the handiest tip I have is to use two-factor authentication. Two-factor authentication, some of you may be familiar with it already. A lot of services have it as an option that's available. So for Gmail, to log into my Gmail account, I have to know my password, but I also have to have my cell phone and verify my identity on my phone. If you have questions about two-factor authentication, please feel free to ask. I'm happy to help you get that set up. Two-factor authentication does not work for everybody. Like if you don't have reliable access to a cell phone, I would not recommend two-factor authentication. But if you do, it can keep people from gaining access to your accounts. If anybody has questions, down at the bottom of your screen, there's a chat option and you can drop questions. I will be here for a bit longer. Be happy to chat if you'd like. But thank you so much for coming today. I hope this was helpful for you. I will send out a recording to this talk next week, as well as a link to these slides here. And if you guys have any questions on anything or need some more resources to learn more about phishing, I would be happy to share those with you via email sometime. So thanks for coming today. And like I said, I'll be around for a bit longer if anybody has questions.